Corinne Woodworth. Mrs. Woodworth is a member of the Duxbury High School English Department. She has been teaching at DHS for the past 15 years, and she has made a difference in the lives of many students. Mrs. Woodworth is also a member of the Faculty Senate. She's involved with the Senior Seminar, which is a preparation for graduation speeches, and she's involved with the National Honor Society, and she is the mentoring coordinator for new teachers. So with that, I would like to welcome Mrs. Woodworth, please.
I thought to keep our minds off Game 7, I'd read a few passages from some of my favorite books. I think I'm joking. Yeah. Okay, good evening, dedicated scholars, treasured families, and accomplished educators gathered on this occasion in which we celebrate the academic achievements of the young adults assembled before us. I'm honored to speak to you on a topic that I believe with my whole heart is the essence of education. Before we start, however, I'd like for you all to take a minute, turn to the person sitting next to you, and share briefly with him or her a book that changed the way you think. I wasn't kidding. How many of you have read it? Seriously? I met Scarlett O'Hara when I was a teenager, and in between swooning over her pretty clothes and imagining a boyfriend that was as exciting and dreamy as Rhett Butler, if you read this book, you know this, I discovered that there was another side to the story of the Civil War than the one that I had been taught, and that not everyone believed the same things I did. This lesson is relevant right now because while I think that literature is the most important influence on culture and should be given prominence in every high school's curriculum, others do not share my belief. Merriam-Webster declared science as the 2013 word of the year. Certainly, during the last several years, we in the field of education have been hearing about the importance of STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and math, so that we can prepare our students to meet the demands of the 21st century. Serving as inspiration for our aspiring scholars, scientists have enjoyed great success unlocking many of the mysteries of the universe recently. The Scripps Research Institute announced last week that they had created artificial DNA. The hope is that this breakthrough will lead to new medical protocols that will help save lives. Another discovery was announced in 2012 in Bern, Switzerland, where the existence of the Higgs particle was confirmed, setting the stage for development of a new physics. For clarification, please see one of your local science teachers. What's important in both these discoveries is the power it gives humans over the fields of human biology and the physical world. Exciting outcomes will result from the discoveries, I'm sure, but with scientific advancements come ethical considerations that must be taken into account with their use. Which brings me to my topic this evening. These dilemmas and many others are explored in the literature that supports our culture. Science cannot always provide the answers to questions we are seeking. Sometimes those answers come from surprising places. One of the most perplexing mysteries for educators is the cause and treatment of autism. In a story reported by Leslie Stahl recently on CBS Sunday Morning, she introduced the Susskind family. Their son Owen, who developed normally until he was 2.5 years old, stopped communicating within the span of a couple of weeks. Doctors diagnosed autism, and he remained completely nonverbal for the next 5 years, apparently taking pleasure from little in his life except for Disney movies. On his brother's 9th birthday, however, he broke his silence, informing his parents that his brother was sad because he didn't want to grow up like Mowgli or Peter Pan. They discovered that not only could he express himself in fully formed sentences that revealed his ability to think critically and abstractly, and to empathize with another human being, he had also taught himself to read by viewing the credits at the ends of the movies. These stories helped him to understand his place in the world, where he sees himself as a sidekick, like Merlin in The Sword and Stone, or Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast, helping others to fulfill their life's destiny. These stories unlocked Owen's silence, helping him to function normally in a world to which he previously had no access. He will graduate from the Riverview School this year. Why is Owen's story important? I'd argue that all stories are important. There's a great power in storytelling. We live in a world where science and technology are touted as the key to future success, and in fact, these disciplines make it possible for humans to continue to gain control over our universe. But I would argue that the STEM subjects need to be balanced with the humanities in general. I'm proposing the SEAM subjects: social studies, English, art, and music. And with literature in particular, in order to fully master the achievements being made, narrative is the oldest art form. Cave paintings from 32,000 years ago demonstrate that our ancestors were engaged in telling stories. Think about evenings around the campfire. The information exchanged there made the difference between survival and death. Science tells us that opposable thumbs allow us to hang on. Stories tell us what to hang on to and why we ought to do it. Because of his ability to retain and express crucial bodies of knowledge, the tribal storyteller was revered in his society. George Lakoff, UC Berkeley professor of linguistics and cognitive science, discovered that our brains are actually hardwired to respond to narrative and metaphor. Because the human brain likes to find patterns and meanings, it activates any other part of the brain that governs the subject of the story, a theory called grounded cognition, which has major implications for education. Students respond better to information woven into narrative than they do to a bulleted list of facts. No surprise there. Researchers at Emory University recently performed an experiment in which the subjects read 30 pages of a novel, after which their brains were scanned on an MRI. The results showed more activity in the parts of the brain that govern both language and motor skills that lasted for 5 days after their reading, which indicates positive outcomes for students who include a healthy dose of literature in their daily routines. Taking this idea further, researchers at the New School in New York City discovered that literary fiction plays an important role in the development of empathy. Subjects who read literary fiction performed better on tests measuring their ability to empathize with people than did subjects who read pop fiction, nonfiction, or no fiction at all. I brought a few of my friends with me this evening to share with you a few examples that can help us make sense of this world. I first encountered this book in graduate school after growing up with a cheesy film adaptation or two that mostly missed the point. Mary Shelley published Frankenstein in 1818. It's not a coincidence that the subtitle of this book is a modern Prometheus, since Dr. Frankenstein discovered, much like his mythological predecessor, that underlying the excitement of scientific exploration is the horror that occurs when the advancement outpaces man's ability to control it. This year, our students were introduced to Arthur Dimmesdale. Everyone's smiling. A man whose life was destroyed because of his inability to accept responsibility for his actions. 2014 marks the 8th year I have taught this book at Duxbury High School. Each year, my students astound me with their insights. And through our class discussions, we all expand our understanding of our place in the world. I could go on all night, but we have some important ceremonies to conclude. So I'll just share one more. Last year, our students met Guy Montag in Fahrenheit 451, a man who held a position of authority in a society that was technologically advanced. He realized his life was meaningless, and the books that he had been ordered to destroy somehow held the key to his unhappiness. His new friend Faber tried to explain the power of books in one of the most beautiful metaphors in all literature. He said, books were only one type of receptacle where we stored a lot of things we were afraid we might forget. There's nothing magical in them at all. The magic is only in what books say, how they stitch the patches of the universe together into one garment for us all. So I'll leave you with this thought from the recent film, Saving Mr. Banks, in which a very charming Walt Disney, played by Tom Hanks, is trying to convince a very stubborn and reluctant P.L. Travers, played by Emma Thompson, to give him the rights to her magical book, Mary Poppins, so that he can create a film to be enjoyed by a wide audience. Against her fears of the character of Mr. Banks, based on her beloved father, who he ridiculed, he assures her that Mr. Banks will preserve his dignity. He promises her that, I'm quoting here, every time a person walks into a movie house, from Leicester Square to Kansas City, they will see George Banks being saved. They will love him as kids. They will weep for his cares. They will wring their hands when he loses his job. And when he flies that kite, they will rejoice. They will sing. He continues his argument. In movie houses all over the world, the eyes and hearts of my kids and other kids, and mothers and fathers for generations to come, George Banks will be honored. George Banks will be redeemed. George Banks and all he stands for will be saved. Maybe not in life, but in imagination. He ends his case with a statement that is most relevant here. Because it's what we storytellers do. We restore order with imagination. We instill hope again and again and again. The power of storytelling is magnificent, whether it's a book or a film, and I'd rather you read the book first, or at the fireside. So here's your assignment. Tonight, after the festivities, go home, put away your cell phones, turn off your computers, turn off the TV, sit down at your tribal campfire, tell the amazing tales of your day, share the stories you have read, and as your journey of lifelong learning continues, read as much as you can. Stitch together a new garment for yourself, and please, make it as variegated and beautiful as I hope your lives will be. Thank you.